Okay, so very good evening, guys. Let's begin with our today's lecture. So, today's lecture, there are some more important points about the syllabus I'm going to discuss about, especially the concept of CI/CD pipeline. Now, what is this CI/CD pipeline? Most of the requirements we are seeing that there is something mentioned about CI/CD pipeline. Have you noticed that? Yesterday also, when some of the requirements we were going through, now these requirements, somewhere CI/CD pipeline concept was there. See here, uh, see, can you see that? CI/CD tool. Let me just 1 minute fix this problem. There's some problem with this projector. Yeah, you can go that side. Let me try once. This should not happen. Okay. So if you observe here, CI/CD tool. Okay, now what does the CI/CD stands for basically? What is the meaning of the CI/CD? CI/CD. So CI/CD, if you observe, it stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment. So let's take an understanding of that with a diagram. So usually what happens in company is these are all the developers who are working on your project. Okay, so let's assume these people, they are developers. Now these developers, they'll write the code, and all that code they will store it in a collaboration tool or a version control tool called as GitHub, right? We have already discussed about this earlier, and this is where the complete project code is present, which is our Java code. In our case, it is Java code. Now, once your Java code is put in GitHub, from here, deployment of the project should be automated. See, we will never manually deploy the project to the server. Usually what happens in company is, once your project code is put into GitHub, automatically that project code from GitHub is picked up and the deployment procedure starts. Now this process of automating your deployment is called as CI/CD pipeline. CI means continuous integration, meaning continuously developer are writing the code in GitHub. Continuously that final code is picked from GitHub and it goes for deployment. So developers, they write the code, put in GitHub. Automatically from GitHub the code is being picked up and then deployed to a server. Okay. Now how this happens? So for that we use here a tool called as Jenkins. I'm sure nowadays you're hearing a lot about Jenkins. Yeah? Yes or no? Whenever you open up any requirement online, you will see somewhere written down CI/CD pipeline Jenkins. Okay? Now what Jenkins does, I'll tell you. First thing, Jenkins is very potential enough. Whenever the code is updated in GitHub, Jenkins will automatically fetch that code. Automatically. Developer just write the code and they'll put that in GitHub. You know what is GitHub? You know what is GitHub? Everyone here. Yes? Once the code is being put in GitHub, Jenkins will automatically pick that up. There is nothing you need to do. Now in Jenkins, we are going to create something called as a pipeline. Pipeline means it is a kind of, steps Jenkins should follow for deployment. So the first step I'm going to write in Jenkins is pick the code from GitHub. Whenever code is updated in GitHub, automatically pick the code. Once the code is been picked up, Jenkins will now make use of Maven. There is nothing you need to do it now. It will automatically make use of what? Maven. Now what Maven does? Maven will automatically run your JUnit test. There is nothing you need to do now. You just write the test. Jenkins will now communicate with Maven and Maven will automatically run JUnit test, and then it will produce one dot jar file. Okay, it will produce one dot jar file. You know what is jar file? The byte code of your program. So look at what is the first step Jenkins doing. Moment these developers they put the code in GitHub, there is a code update in GitHub. Jenkins will pick the code, use Maven, and produce one jar file after performing JUnit test. If the JUnit test has passed, all the test has passed, only then the jar file will be generated. If the JUnit test fails, then the deployment will not take place. Will not waste the time, right? There is some issue. I will figure that out. Some updates must be there. Please shift this side. Okay, everybody got it? Everybody got this now? So once your JUnit test passes, they will have certain standards in company. The JUnit test has to pass. There should be 80% of the code coverage, meaning 80% of your code should have been tested. Jacoco, which gives us the percentage of code being tested. Previous lectures. Correct? And then produces a jar file. Right? Now this jar file is then taken and then it will make use of Docker. Docker is used to remove compatibility issue. Right? Remove what? Compatibility. Because if you generate one Docker file, that Docker file you can run on any server. You need not worry about compatibility issue. That's the advantage of Docker. But to generate a Docker, we require a jar file. So to run the jar file, Docker provides a software setup. Now to run Java code, I will require JDK. Yes or no? Correct? When I'm running my project, I would require database. Which version of JDK? Which database version? Everything Docker will take care of it. It gives us a platform to run the software actually. Are you understanding now? Now once this Docker file is being generated, Jenkins will automatically make use of Kubernetes. Why Kubernetes? Can you tell me why Kubernetes? Because Kubernetes will take care of disaster recovery and scalability, and there are various other concepts like load balancing. Load balancing, I'll talk about that next. Hold on. But see here, this is where Jenkins, after the Docker file is generated, it will now make use of Kubernetes, K8s. And Kubernetes will automatically now run your applications in the server. Okay, depending on the load, it will increase the number of servers, decrease the number of servers. If any server goes down, it will replace it, and the deployment is completed. This whole process we will set up, which no AI tool on this earth can do. There is no AI tool which can perform these things. It has to be a human being. AI tool can be a support system to help you if you have gone wrong somewhere. It will help you to educate you where you have gone wrong. But this has to be done by a developer. Now once the setup is done, that's it. The complete further project deployment is automated. Further again, developer added a new code. The new code is picked up by Jenkins. Jenkins will give it to Maven. Maven will generate a jar file. Based on the jar file, Jenkins will then make use of Docker. It will generate one Docker file. Using the Docker file, then we will run that on different servers. So Kubernetes will take care of your server management, increasing number of servers, decreasing number of servers, depending on load, disaster recovery, and various other functionalities like load balancing, which I will discuss further. Okay. Again, after few days, a new code is updated. Automatically Jenkins will see there is a new code updated. Pick the new code, generate a jar file, Docker file, Kubernetes, finally deploy to server. This whole process of deployment is being automated, and that is why it is called as continuous integration and continuous deployment. Continuous integration and continuous deployment. Did you understand this, guys? Online people, please tell me. Did you understand this part? Online people, offline students, please tell me. Hmm? This is not just for AWS. AWS has to be used here. We will be using AWS. You can also use GCP. You can also use Azure. Jenkins is nothing to do with which cloud infrastructure you're using. Okay. CI/CD pipeline is common for every, okay, cloud infrastructure provider. What is infrastructure provider is? You want to take servers online. Then there is a company like AWS by Amazon. You can take servers on rent from them. Same way Azure, which is by Microsoft. They give you servers on rent. Same way we have GCP by Google. You can take their servers on rent. So this CI/CD pipeline concept is common for all. Wherever you take the servers doesn't matter. Okay, everybody got it? Everybody got it? See why they're not popular. See, the reason being is GCP is also kind of popular, but yeah, AWS actually has the implementations to be kind of very widely architecture and beautifully architectured, right? So AWS is kind of more popular. What are our end-to-end projects? Yes, we will talk about that. I'm going to talk about that. Hold on, give me some time. Did you understand the CI/CD pipeline concept? Can I proceed further now? Now see, we have discussed about Maven, Kubernetes, Jenkins, which will help us to achieve CI/CD pipeline. Now there's something called as load balancing. Now what is load balancing is, imagine I have an application running on a server. Now usually what we will do in your real projects, same application you will run on multiple servers. Like this application, I'm running it on multiple servers. How many servers I'm running on? 3 servers. Correct? I'm running on what? 3 servers. Why am I doing that? So that the incoming traffic load I can split among these servers, which will give me better performance. So we use here a concept called as load balancer. We use here a concept called as what? The name itself says, I will balance the load on server. Now imagine there are some incoming requests to access application 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now what will happen is, this load balancer will automatically take the first request and give to first server. When a second request comes, it will put it to second server. Third request, it will put to third server. Again the next request, first server. Second request, second server. And third request. So this is called as a round robin fashion of distributing the load on server. This is very important. Now you're running one application on multiple server. Why we are doing that? So that we distribute the load and we don't stress a server too much, because if you do that, the performance will reduce. The response time of your application will reduce. This concept of load balancing is also taken care of in Kubernetes. Did you understand now? Everyone? Yes. So Kubernetes disaster recovery, right? Load balancing, auto scaling of servers, everything I can achieve that with Kubernetes, which was initially developed by Google company. Okay, right? Any other doubts do you have? Please tell me. Online students, offline students. Shall we proceed further? Yes. You will not understand this in 100% manner, but at least some roadmap clarity you would have started getting now. That what we have to learn to be a developer. Because firstly, students, they don't even know what syllabus have to learn. Correct? Once that is clear, our roadmap is clear, that after learning this, I'm going to prepare one nice resume. Okay? Let's continue further. Now we are going to look at next Terraform. Now what is Terraform? See, Terraform, we will see. We will talk about that. I have not discussed about SonarQube yet. I'll discuss about that. Hold on. Firstly, I'm discussing about Terraform. See, Terraform is what I'll tell you. Now, usually, what happens is, whenever you want to create servers, set up servers, okay, you want to do an infrastructure setup. What is infrastructure setup is? Let's say I want to now run my application. So, traditionally, what we used to do? We used to purchase servers. Okay, that was very expensive. Okay, so if you just go online and search here for server rooms, you can see the photos. This is how the server setup would be done. Every IT company would have their own server setup. They would purchase this hardware, do the setup for it, networking for it, specialized people to manage this. Then application deployment would happen in the server. They would have their dedicated servers to run application. Okay, but today we are now using the model like servers on rent, like how you take car on rent. Correct? You take car on what? Rent. You don't purchase the car. You can take car on rent if you are planning some 10 days of trip. So that is where what happens is now when we people are talking about, okay, one minute. So when we people are talking about taking the servers on rent and purchasing by yourself, what is the advantage, disadvantage? Today if I purchase server, after a few years it might get outdated. I have to upgrade that. I have to manage the server. Specialized people are required to manage the server. But today it's not like that. If you take the servers on rent, the upgradation, maintenance, that is all the headache of the companies like AWS, where they're providing you infrastructure on rent. And you can now create servers online through the browser, which means you can log into their application. I'll just go to AWS like this. AWS. I can sign up, create an account here. I can sign up and create an account here. And from here, I can access all the server setup to be done remotely. Now, this server setup one is I can do it manually. Another way is I can use Terraform and automate server and infrastructure creation by using Terraform, in which I'll be teaching you a language called as HashiCorp configuration language. We will use HCL. So, we'll be learning how to use HCL. Using HCL, you will understand how we can automate infrastructure creation in this cloud platforms like GCP, Azure, AWS, any of those cloud infrastructure providers. I can use this particular what? Terraform. Did you understand this now, people? Did you understand this part? So what Terraform does, it automates server creation and you need not manually use this particular UI to log in and create. But our course covers both. First I'll teach you manual infrastructure creation. And then second step I will teach you the same thing, how we can do it using Terraform. Example, I want to set up a database online. So firstly I will create a database in AWS. Second, I can do the same thing with Terraform. But if you're using Terraform, you should know HCL, HashiCorp Configuration Language, HCL. So that is another programming language which we will be exploring it during our training program. Of course, there are a lot of things. I will not be discussing all of that right away, but some of them I have discussed. Another one is SonarQube. SonarQube is again a very fantastic tool that does a static code review. What do you mean by that? You have written some code, but you're never using it. So this SonarQube will identify the things where you've gone wrong, and it will now tell that, okay, you have created some code here and that code is never being used anywhere. Then why have you created? Remove that code. Unnecessary, have added this line of code because it is nowhere being used. So that static review of the code is what SonarQube takes care of, right? Sometimes you started writing some code and then you decided, okay, instead let me do this, but you forgot to now basically remove that code from your project or something else basically like this you have done. So it takes care of that. It reviews your code to understand whether you have developed this code as per the industry standards, right? So as per the industry standard, have you developed the code? That static review of the code, SonarQube does that. So JUnit does a different thing. JUnit performs testing of code logic, okay, and SonarQube checks whether the code is written down with the best standards. Okay, so there are differences which you will understand that further in my future classes. But so far, see, we started our discussion with core Java, then we understood servlets JDBC, right? How front end, back end code that's going to work. Then we discussed about Spring Boot, Hibernate, Spring Security, API development. We talked about microservices, Kafka. I have not discussed about project yet. Then we discussed about why Git and GitHub. We discussed about why Docker, Jira, JUnit, Mockito, Jacoco. Then we discussed about Kubernetes and Maven, CI/CD pipeline, Terraform. Everything I'm not going to talk right away because now you can only have understanding of it. Some part when we start practically, let's take it at that time only. Okay, but some at least 70%, 60% understanding people have started building that as a developer, what I should learn, and I should not get fooled, okay, with a dummy syllabus. Where people, when you ask them how many months course, 6.5 months, how many months Java, they'll tell 5 months, which means your course itself is structured incorrectly. Because in 1.5 months, nobody can cover so much of advanced classes. These all things do you think I can cover in 1.5 months? Impossible, right? So you have to understand there itself you can realize the code structure is correct or not. Okay, so this is very, very important because most of the time you will end up only learning Java for 5 months, and then when it comes to advanced Java, the basic things are covered and job done. Be careful here. Let's continue further. The next thing we are going to understand why we should learn Linux and shell scripting. Very important. See, whenever you deploy your software on server, whenever you deploy the software on server, please understand, right? On the server now, most of the time we will be using Linux operating system. Now this Linux operating system which is there on the server will not have a user interface like Windows. Like if you want to create a file in Windows, what you will do? You will just right click, go to new, and then after that you will create here a file. I have this option in Windows, right? But in Linux, if you want to create a file, we will be using Linux commands. We will be using Linux command. That's how you'll be interacting with Linux. And Linux operating systems are highly secured and free to use. And best when it comes to performance. The performance of Linux operating system is the best. So most of the time on servers, we prefer Linux operating system. I want to install a software. What do we do here? We'll go to Google, download, double click, next, finish. I cannot do that on Linux. If I want to install a software in Linux, I should know Linux commands, right? Now, as a developer, tomorrow, if you want to interact with your Linux servers, and if you don't have Linux commands, you will never be able to interact with your Linux servers. Let's say you want to read some file content. Okay, now the file is on Linux server. You have to remotely connect your server and read that file content. You will not be able to do that. Now, I talked about Kafka. Where will I install Kafka? I will install that on Linux server. Where will you install Kubernetes? I will not install that on my local computer. That Linux, okay, on that I have to install Kubernetes. How to install? Again, I require Linux commands. We talked about Maven. We will not install Maven just in our local computer. The place where our software is going to run on the server, I will have to download and install Maven. How do I do all of these things? So to work on your Linux servers, Linux operating system, Linux commands becomes mandatory. And trust me, our BTM layout, Linux is itself striped out. It's very important. Okay, hands-on Linux commands is mandatory. And if you're not doing that, you will not be able to, okay, you will not be able to interact with your servers where the softwares are installed. Tomorrow, one more thing might happen. When the project is running, application is running, we generate something called as log files, just to understand how my application is performing. Is my application running properly? Is there any problem that happened in my software? Log files are generated. Now to interact with that log files, one of the ways I will use Linux commands. Are you understanding? Yeah. Another thing with this, we will use shell scripting to automate the task. Let's say I want to take data backup every day, every midnight, 2 a.m. Automatically the data backup should be taken for safety reasons. So I will use shell scripting to automate the task on my server. You will not at 2 a.m. some person will manually go and take your application data backup. To take the data backup, one simple thing, to automate such task, I'll be using shell scripting. Did you understand why we should learn this now? Yes or no? Online students, did you understand now why this is important for us now? Okay, why this is important for us? I hope this part is clear for all of you and you don't have any doubts here. Online students, are you clear with this part? Offline students, any doubts you have till here? Okay, so we will create Linux servers, we will use Linux commands, and lot of Linux commands I'm going to teach you. So we have separate section of notes present in your GitHub. If you just go here and if you search for Linux notes, go to the repositories, and if you search here for Linux, hit on enter, you see that I have separate notes. And when you open this up, observe here, we have all that thing I'm going to talk about, like the Linux commands, who am I, pwd, date, cal, okay, like this, lot of commands I'm going to teach you. Can you see this here? A proper syllabus coverage is very much required. Okay, very much required. Otherwise, you will not be confident enough. You will not be confident enough. Okay, right. Now, let's continue further. Now, the next thing that we are going to understand here is some more things. AWS services. So this part of your lecture will teach you how to create infrastructure in AWS. Example, I want to select a server for my application. Which server to select? What all configurations are available? How to select an operating system while creating a server, right? So all that concept comes in EC2. Are you understanding now? Okay, likewise we have so many things here. So many things here. Okay, I will not talk about all of that as of now. You will learn that in my real lectures. RDS. This concept will help you. okay, to understand how a database setup can be done in AWS, because we will never keep the software in local computer. We will have to deploy that to the server. So how RDS setup can we do? Correct? If you are interested to learn Python, we can provide that also, don't worry. Without charging that, I have some lectures, I'll provide it. But now focus here what we are talking about. Next thing, how load balancer setup can be done in AWS. We will talk about that. Just now I discussed about load balancers. Yes or no? Then you will see the types of memories our servers they offer. Like your laptop also you have a memory. So this AWS is like a mall, shopping mall. You know, when you want to purchase a laptop, you go to a shopping mall, you decide on the configuration, how much GB RAM, how much hard disk required. But this shopping mall is like configuring your own server. You take a server, how much GB of RAM is required, how much hard disk is required. Do you require an external hard disk for it? Like usually you purchase the pen drives. So like this, do you require a memory extensions to be done? Taking the backup of data. How do I extend my server memory? How do I take the backup of my data? Right? How do I secure my laptops? You put a passwords and things like that. So there's something called as, there's something called as a concept here, like security group. How does it work? Then we have S3, like when you're developing an application like Facebook, where there are billions of photos. You cannot keep that local photos in your server directly. We will go with a cloud storage, like your mobile phone photos. If it is stored in your local mobile phone will crash because you'll run out of memory. And today photo clicking is a very common thing that you see in mobiles. But when you click the photo, it is stored in a cloud storage. So how do we create that storage in the cloud to store my application files? Like resumes. If you look at Naukri.com, they've got crores of resume. If I'm building such an application, where will I store this? S3. Simple storage system. Got it? Then we'll make our Java program communicate with S3. I'm building a hotel management system. A hotel photos. There are thousands of hotels taken tie up with me, like Make My Trip. All that hotel photos, where will you store? If you don't store in S3, your application will crash. Your application will crash. Performance will be very bad. So these all concepts we are going to learn here. VPC. How to create my own network and make one server communicate with another. How do I have my own network? VPC. Virtual private cloud. How to do that setup? We will be learning that in AWS. Did you understand that? All the online students, are you understanding now? Yes. So like there's a lot of concepts. When we start with that, you'll start understanding it. Now tomorrow, we will discuss about the projects that I'm going to do in depth manner. What projects we are going to cover in your curriculum. So far, I assume students, you're all clear with it. Yeah. Is this giving you a clear idea? What as a developer you have to learn. Now, when you go to any of the requirements online, some requirement, you'll start understanding it now. See, good to have Spring framework, messaging Kafka, right? Somewhere in my notes, ELK was there. Yes or no? See, they've given here shell scripts. Fine. Again, if you now go to some other requirement, observe here. I have some more requirements here. Where is that? Okay, this was another requirement. So if you now observe here very clearly, Scrum Masters. So this is all to do with Agile. I discussed about Agile and Jira. Yes or no? Whatever I talked about CI/CD pipeline, that's all to do with DevOps. So DevOps is a part of our course. Fine. So if you just go to some other requirements, like this, the requirement understanding has started. See, Kubernetes, correct? Spring Boot microservices. IAM. This is all to do with your, somewhere in AWS should have seen that. Okay. So you will start understanding your requirement properly. This is to do with Spring security. APIs, microservices, Kafka, JMeter. We'll discuss about JMeter tomorrow, right? So like this, you people have to be well versed with your syllabus firstly. Is this clear? Any other doubts in today's class? If not, I will end my today's lecture here. See you again tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll discuss about project that I'm going to do, and then we will start with core Java classes. We'll start with what? Your actual programming classes. Your core Java classes is what we are going to begin with. Fine. So again, today's class, if clear, we will, okay, I want audience to participate in the poll, and the structure of the course in a high level manner. Nobody can understand in depth manner right now, but in a high level manner, if you're able to understand, then well and good. See, second hand laptops, some students have been asking me. So every place has some market. Like in this case, Bangalore, there is a market called as SP Road. Now here, it's a very biggest market of Bangalore for electronics items, right? Whatever you want related to electronics things, you will get here, from pen drive to new laptops to second hand laptops. And there are a lot of trusted vendors. Now when you go there, the second hand laptops they provide, but in a genuine way. Don't purchase it online, because online you cannot reach out the people. Tomorrow if any problem is there, you cannot go to their shop. But if shopkeeper is giving it, definitely he will give you a good one. And if any problem happens, he also give you 1 month of warranty. If anything goes wrong, they'll tell I will fix it and give you. So if you go there, some 75,000 rupees of laptops, you'll get it at 12 and 13,000. Yes, 12 to 13,000. And that'll be a good one, because they have all purchased from those IT companies which has got shut down, or probably they're upgrading laptops. But for us, simple i5 processor, 8 GB RAM, 500 SSD is enough. But if you get a good laptop at this cost, 12 to 15,000, then it's a good deal. Okay, so your laptop minimum i5, 8 GB RAM, hard disk should be SSD 500 GB, and ensure operating system is Windows 10 and above. Windows 10 and above. Okay, this is enough for our practicing and giving interviews online. Check the camera properly and the mic and audio, because that will be important while you're attending interviews online. Okay, any other questions, queries? Do you have it? Please tell me. If not, i3 is also okay. Just upgrade it. If you already have a laptop, don't invest money. Again, go to the market like this. Tell I want to upgrade RAM. I want to upgrade the hard disk to SSD. So somewhere around 3,500 to 4,000, laptop will get upgraded. They'll install operating system also, and it will be very fast. Go with Kingston. They might try to sell some other companies because they might have more profit margin, but go with the branded one. Like if you're going with some SSD or something, go with Kingston. RAM also, you go with a good company. Check all those things and then get that upgraded. Okay, so how much your computer supports the RAM, you will get to know that. 100% when I start with core Java classes, you will understand how the lectures are going to happen, right? You will get to know the speed of lectures. You will understand that, don't worry. I will not tell anything, still demo you are attending. You will realize that when the actual core Java classes starts, in one day, 250 to 300 lines of notes gets over. And that too very slowly. I'm not going to speed up. I'll go slow, because these are zero writing classes. These are only going to be practical classes further. No, I will tell you how the notes capturing will happen. Patience. I will discuss that tomorrow.